Member Gomez, are you with us? It says it is. She's muted, so I can't hear her. Member Gomez, can you hear me?
Yeah, but I'm trying to fix my iPad, so I don't know how well it's going to go for the meeting.
Okay, so we'll do our best to work our way through it. All right. I think sometimes when there's multiple devices, I think it creates issues. But I will always assist you however I can, Member Gomez, all right? I think I lost her. So. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mute myself for a minute. And as soon as our city clerk signs on, if we have time, I'm happy to do an animal escapade if everyone's game for it.
I'm sure Charlene will definitely be up.
Thank you. I notice everyone else is silent. The city attorney's silent.
I mean, I will gladly talk animals with you all day.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
love animals. I'm excited to see Charlene's piggy. I want to.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see if she's got little Miss Petunia yet or Mr. Piggy. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited.
I know it's going to be, he or she is going to be a member of the family, I'm sure. And so I'm just presuming our city attorney is the kind of guy who loves animals too. He's not chiming in, so I don't know if he heard me.
Andre, you there?
Nope, there she is. Okay, there is our city clerk. Miss Charlene, do we have little Miss or Mr. Piggy yet?
Is that me that's doing that?
No.
No, I'm 7 away.
Okay, that's better than 16.
Yep.
So the next meeting you will have a baby.
Hopefully, because there was 2 mamas that had litters. So I'm like, I need one more mama to have a big litter.
How many do they normally have? Do you know?
Well, one only had 3 and then the next one had 6.
Okay.
So,
and the average is, we don't know.
I think it's around 4 or 5. Like okay. 6 is a lot, 3's not. So
okay. All right. So
hopefully this has been the longest process.
I mean, it's like labor, right? I always tease people that I had don't talk to me about your labor because I had the longest labor with my 2 youngest. Both of them were 3 years. So give me a break. They were both adopted at 3. And so
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in the spirit of animal escapades and seeing that we only have probably a couple minutes, may I introduce to you little Miss Gigi.
And having an outfit on and
really, I know.
this is Gigi Bell.
And she love her.
She is truly okay. So she's 14. She thinks she's a puppy. She's probably almost deaf. But let me just tell you the little escapade with this one. Do you know she could have cost me a felony arrest? Oh. Did you tell that by just looking at her?
Yeah, that she looks like a felony.
So she showed up at the house one day, and of course she has a collar on, so we know that she belongs to someone. So I put the little signs on the little mailboxes throughout the neighborhood, and even the one right across the street, nobody responds. Little did we know, because we had only been in Victorville a few years, but there is evidently, we were told by a deputy, that you have to put an ad in the paper that you found a pet. You found an animal. Well, we didn't do that. So anyway, this darling little thing showed up at our door, and my son Joshua grew so very attached to her straight away and slept with her, and she was just a little lap doggy. And then one day, Joshua's home hospital teacher came in. Her dog was diagnosed with parvo. And so she was terrified that Gigi and our other animals were going to get parvo. So we decided, well, we've had her a few weeks. We've looked as best we know how to look. She's now ours. We're going to take her to the vet, get her checked out. So we got her checked out. We got her shots. We had her scheduled for her to be spayed and all of that. And lo and behold, one day she got out. And a neighbor across the street said, "That's our dog." Come to find out, they were actually babysitting this little doggie who had been a gift to his girlfriend. And, she got out and, whatever, however it happened. But they came up to my husband when I was out one day, and my husband thought he resolved the issue. Well, clearly it wasn't, because by the time I got home and my husband was there, I pulled into my driveway and my car was properly swarmed with people saying that I stole a dog. So I said, oh my goodness, I thought this was resolved. It's not. I'm going to call the sheriff's department and see if we can all find a way to work this out. So lo and behold, to make a long story short, the sheriff said, well, they bought her for thus and such amount. And so if you don't give her back, it's a felony.
Oh,
And do you want to know what my son Joshua said?
How much you want?
And I quote, "I'm good with that." And I thought, well, maybe a misdemeanor, but a felony. No.
you're right.
Because around Christmas, we offered to buy her. And, but because she was a gift to a girlfriend, it was kind of hard. Anyway, so we gave her to the people across the street. And come to find out the next day, she stood at their front door all night long and barked to come back to our house. And she kept having accidents at the front door.
She
So
knew.
the next day they were totally willing to sell her. So we bought her. This is our Gigi Belle. She's my dog.
You're quite the dog. And does she always dress up?
Yeah, in the winter because it's cold.
I
And we
love
try
it.
to keep them in at night because it's so cold.
The
But
pink
yeah.
works with the black. I love it.
Yes. Does she have any? See, she's clueless. Hello. I don't even know if she can hear any of this. It's my Gigi. All right, I'm going to sign off, put her downstairs. I'll be right back. Bye.
Well,
All right, good evening, everyone. Do we have our council members with us?
Yes.
All of them are with us? Terrific. All right, are we ready to begin then?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, good evening. Today is Tuesday, February 2, 2021. The time is 5 p.m. The regular meeting of the following will come to order. The Victorville City Council and the same council also sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, the Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the city as housing asset successor, Joint Powers Financing Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you kindly call roll?
Councilmember Becerra,
here.
Councilmember Gomez,
Present.
Councilmember Ramirez, Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Present.
Mayor Jones.
Here. And Madam Clerk, we have established a quorum. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
We have no speakers at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we're looking for the declaration of closed session items by our city attorney, Mr. DeBornowski.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. We have one item this evening. It is conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. The property location is set forth on the agenda, as are the negotiating parties. To the extent there is reportable action, we will report it either at the conclusion of the closed session or at the commencement of the regular 6 o'clock session.
Thank you. And so with that having been said, we're going to go ahead and recess to closed session. We will resume open session at 6 p.m.
Do we log off and
ready tomorrow. How much? One occupancy. $600? Okay, I understand, but tomorrow. Okay then. Thank you. The crane shaft is wearing out. There is no question what's going on about doing a shaft and stuff. Well, Tony, sometimes it's not always the best policy to be tough. It can end up costing you more in the long. I'm guessing you got
Okay, just checking in. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, so I hear Member Irving, and it looks like Member Gomez is with us and Member Becerra. So we have all of our council members. I understand that Member Ramirez will not be with us this evening.
Correct.
Okay, and very quickly, can we test Member Gomez's audio? Member Gomez, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can see you and I can hear you. You can hear me fine?
Yes.
Terrific. All right, good. Glad to hear it. All right, at 6 p.m., is everyone ready? All right, since I hear nothing to the contrary. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, February 2, 2021. The time is 6 p.m. We are resuming the open session of our regular meeting, the following of which will now come to order. The Victorville City Council and the same council also sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the sitting as Housing Asset Successor, Joint Powers Financing Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you kindly call the roll?
Councilmember Becerra,
Here.
Councilmember Gomez,
Here.
Councilmember Ramirez, Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Present.
Mayor Jones.
Here. All right, a quorum has been established. And Mr. D. Bortnowski, do you have closed session announcements for us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jones. We had one item this evening. It was real property negotiations.
We
pursuant to
were
Dem-
hearing
549.
feedback. Can everyone? Mr. D.
Real
Bortnowski,
property,
Mr. D.
listed on the agenda, as are the negotiating parties. And at this point, there is no reportable action.
Thank you, Mr. D. Bortnowski. So we had a little bit of feedback there. So unless your teed up to speak, if you could make sure that your microphones are muted, it would be very helpful. All right, so we're going to now look on to our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. Our invocation will be by Pastor Dane Davis, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance by Captain John Wickham. Is Pastor Dane Davis with us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jones. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. And I was just reading in Proverbs 3 this morning, 2 verses very familiar to many. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths, or as some translations put it, and he will make your paths straight. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you in Christ's name, thanking you once again for this privilege to gather. Lord, we didn't wake up this morning because our alarm clocks went off. We wouldn't have heard them had you not woken us up. So thank you, Lord, for giving us life. Thank you for the breath in our lungs and the beat of our hearts. And Lord, sometimes we may not like these bodies of ours, but they are a blessing. Thank you, Lord, for the eyes we have to see, the ears to hear, and the mouths to speak, the legs to walk, the hands to lift, and do your work. So we just pray that you would use our city council members and city leaders tonight, Lord, to do your work in the city of Victorville. Lord, we count this an honor and a privilege to lead and to serve in our community. And we pray, oh God, that we would serve well for the good of others and for the glory of God. And it's in Christ's name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Davis. Captain Wickham.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. All right, Madam Clerk, will you kindly present the agenda and any revisions thereto?
Tonight's City Council meeting is being held virtually on Zoom due to safety concerns related to COVID-19 and to reduce exposure for our community members, city employees, and council members. Our virtual meetings are conducted in accordance with the Brown Act and special provisions enacted during the coronavirus pandemic and will be held this way until further notice. We invite members of the public to participate in our meetings via Zoom. However, for those who do not wish to comment on issues, our meeting may be viewed on YouTube. For future council meetings, public comment may be submitted and distributed to the council prior to or no later than 4 p.m. the day of our council meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no revisions to the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, council members, do you have any legal declarations to make in terms of conflict of interest? As I hear none, we're going to go ahead and move on to the introduction of public comments. So welcome to tonight's meeting of the Victorville City Council. Your City Council is interested in your ideas and opinions and furthermore endeavors to incorporate them into its deliberations. At the same time, the council must be able to carry out its business in an organized and efficient manner, free from material disruption. Therefore, this meeting will be administered in accordance with the council's established policies and procedures and Government Code Section 54957.9. Open meeting laws do not confer any privilege or protection for expression beyond that otherwise provided by law, nor do they permit council members to engage in dialogue during the public comment period. All testimony is to be directed solely to the council. Individual speakers are allowed to address the council once per agenda item for up to 3 minutes. When comments are invited, click the raise your hand feature located on the Zoom screen. Individuals will be unmuted, called on by name, then recognized by the presiding officer. Speakers are requested to comment as briefly as the subject permits. Individuals may speak to issues not posted on the agenda during the public comments section on the agenda, providing those issues are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The presiding officer may decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the number of persons wishing to be heard. The presiding officer may also take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. Audience members may not disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, and those who do not are subject to removal from the meeting pursuant to Penal Code 403. Your understanding and cooperation are appreciated. Now, before we move on to really our first business in order, I don't know if you're all aware, but last night was Planning Commissioner Huber's last evening, and there was a fond farewell given to him. Unfortunately, the video presentation for him had some technical difficulties, so it's appropriate at this time to cue that up so that we can give a proper farewell to a member of our Planning Commission for many, many years, Larry Huber. Mr. Metzler.
Let's go, yep, let's go ahead and cue that up.
Larry, on behalf of the thank you for your dedicated service to the city of Victorville. Victorville hit the jackpot when the U.S. Air Force assigned you to George Air Force because you stayed and dedicated the next 59 years of your life to serving our community. During your 30 years as a Victorville Planning Commissioner, you saw our population more than double, our infrastructure mature, and our economy thrive. All the while, you aided our city with important planning decisions and promoted a pro-business environment. And you forged a lasting positive imprint on Victorville through your generous community service as a volunteer firefighter, an elk, a member of the Kiwanis, and a United Way volunteer, well, and then much, much more. We're grateful for your tremendous legacy of service. As a token of appreciation from the city of Victorville, we are proud to present you with this plaque. I hope you can see it, and street sign that was made by our Public Works crew. We hope that you will display your personal street sign proudly and that it will serve as a fond reminder of your tremendous contributions to our great city. Thank you, Mr. Huber. And with that, thank you, Mr. Metzler, for teeing that up for us. And best wishes to you, Mr. Huber. You're going to be missed. All right, our first business in order this evening is the consent calendar items 1 through 3. Items on this portion of the agenda include matters considered to be of a routine, administrative, or non-controversial nature and can be approved in one motion for the purpose of conserving time for other matters that may require discussion. Council members may, however, comment on consent calendar items or ask for minor clarification without the need for pulling the items for separate consideration. Any comment or clarifications shall necessarily be limited in nature. Any member wishing either to provide commentary or have a detailed discussion on an item must move to have that item pulled for separate discussion when prompted by the presiding officer. So at this time, the chair asks if there are any special requests first. Does any member wish to move to pull an item for separate consideration? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to a request if any member.
Muted.
Member Gomez, you have, does it say co-host next to your name?
I don't see that, but I wanted to pull item number 1.
Oh, okay, hold on just a moment. Let me receive some clarification because I want to make sure that we can make this meeting as smoothly as we can. Madam Clerk, does Member Gomez have co-host status?
Yes, she does, and she
Yes,
has the ability to unmute.
She does. So Member Gomez, you do always have the ability to unmute yourself. I'm going to allow it this time. So what item was it that you wish to pull? Was that item number 1?
Item number 1.
Okay, very good. Any other council members, do you wish to pull any items for separate consideration? Okay, so Member Gomez, do you wish to make your motion to pull the item for separate consideration?
Yes, that's my motion.
Okay, is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies. Does any member wish to provide limited comment or ask for minor clarification on any other items?
Do you need a motion and a second for that to occur?
No, to make limited comment or ask for minor clarification, that does not require a motion.
Okay, well,
So
I'd
did
like
you want to comment on item number 1, Member Gomez?
So on item number 1, it's a
Yeah,
substitution.
Wait, hold on. Do you wish to comment on that item?
Yeah.
Okay, so before I come back to you, Member Gomez, are there any other members that wish to comment on any other items, just so I know where we are? Okay, hearing none. Member Gomez, you're free to make limited comment or ask for minor clarification on item number, consent calendar item number 1.
So it's talking about substitutions of trustees as a formed successor trustee. So I was looking at the MAP program, and the MAP assistance program says that the CARES Act of 2020 provided mortgage relief to alleviate the burden of monthly mortgage payments during COVID-19 pandemic. The program is not to refinance your mortgage, but to let you postpone repayments while keeping your loan active. I wanted to know if anywhere in this particular item can we see the item speaking to the CARES Act to alleviate a burden of monthly mortgages?
Mr. Metzler?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item particularly doesn't have any relationship to CARES Act or mortgage relief, and has more to do with the reconveyance of what we would typically call a silent second mortgage, which is what our mortgage assistance program does, is provide down payment assistance to qualified home buyers to promote home ownership in the city of Victorville. And in this particular case, this is dealing with now the payoff of that loan originally provided on this particular piece of property.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Member Gomez. All right, now we're going to open it up to the public comment period for items 1 through 3. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests?
There are no requests to speak.
All right, at this time, it's appropriate for the chair to request action on the consent calendar items 1 through 3 in accordance with the recommendations presented on the agenda. If you agree with what I've just suggested, please feel free to say so moved.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have
Second.
a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Irving and a second by Member Becerra. Madam Clerk, will you kindly take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. So the council's just taken action in accordance with the recommendations set out by staff on the agenda. All right, next business in order is written communications. We begin with item number 4, request to approve automatic aid agreement with San Bernardino County Fire Protection District. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I'd say with this item, we've come a long way to be able to put this item in front of you. I think more so because of the relationship that has evolved over the course of the past couple of years involving our transition from county fire to city fire. And I don't think this item comes before you if it wasn't for the leadership of both Chief Muncie and our fire chief, Chief Becker. But like we have with other allied agencies, this item before you actually memorializes our relationship with San Bernardino County Fire, both on a mutual aid basis, which mutual aid I think can easily be defined as the need for service from an allied responder for incidents that are beyond our capability of control. And then of course, automatic aid to areas to where we can actually provide the closest available resource as opposed to the first available resource from the respective jurisdictions and introduced a concept of boundary drop, really with the goal of making fire service more efficient from a larger regional perspective. So similar to what we have with Apple Valley Fire and others, this agreement will allow us to have an automatic aid relationship with County Fire. I think the best way to illustrate, for example, where the county or where residents of the Victor Valley might see some immediate benefit is certainly in areas like Mountain View Acres, where we certainly have stations much more proximate to that area than, say, County Fire does. But then there's also areas where County Fire is closer to certain territories within our city where they may be a more close resource to provide immediate response. So with that, we're proud to bring this item forward with the respective recommendation. Chief Becker is available as well for any technical questions related to this item, but certainly appreciate you allowing us the opportunity to get to this point and bringing this item forward.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, will you kindly read the recommendation?
That the City Council approve an agreement for automatic aid and mutual aid between San Bernardino County Fire Protection District and the City of Victorville, and to authorize the city manager or his designee to execute said agreement.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So now we have a lot of backup information on this item in the staff's report. So at this time, the chair asks council members if they have any technical questions for clarification as it relates to the staff report. And we will begin with Member Becerra.
No questions.
Thank you. Member Gomez.
Yes. So if there's no current agreement support for fire department in providing services to the community, how has the Department of Fire Services been able to provide emergency services thus far?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. How we've been providing service thus far has been with our own fire department. We currently operate a number of stations throughout the town, and we effectively serve as the primary responder for fire and medic aid services. So principally, we are the responder. Absent this agreement, when it comes to requesting allied support or auto aid support, that's going to come likely first from Apple Valley, and then we also have similarly natured agreements, I believe, with, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, BLM and CAL FIRE. So we would rely on them next. What this does is makes a logical connection to our southern boundaries, western boundaries, and even our northern boundary, which is effectively the service territories for San Bernardino County Fire. So it actually brings us additional resource to basically surround your community. So we can pull resources in from allied responders in any part of the city now.
Okay, and are there reportings that show inefficiency to support an automatic aid agreement?
Not that I'm aware of.
So when did the department find the need to create the automatic aid agreement? Now, February 2021.
Well, automatic aid has always been envisioned as a part of our response strategy, even when we stood it up. And you may recall that earlier on in the transition and evolution of the stand-up of our department, we immediately rolled into allied response agreements such as this with the other allied partners. It's just taken some time to get past the issues that were surrounding the transition to where we were also able to get leadership in place, not just here, but certainly at the county. They've had their change in leadership as well. And I think the confluence of that change has made both of our organizations much more open to letting the past be the past and moving forward and just focusing on what is the best public service to the residents, regardless of whether they're in Victorville or Adelanto or Hesperia.
Okay, and then thank you. And then you spoke about collaborations. what does this thing as increased collaborations look after an agreement versus before the agreement?
It sounds like you may be citing from the staff report, and I probably would turn it over to Chief Becker in this particular case because he likely can speak to collaboration from the operational perspective. I suspect he might give hints at joint training opportunities and things of that nature, but I'm going to turn it over to Chief so I don't steal too much of his thunder.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, historically, departments will enter into automatic aid agreements with their surrounding jurisdictions. And it's of everyone's benefit to have an agreement like this. It provides a piece of apparatus that is the closest apparatus, not necessarily the one from the agency where the incident occurred. So if you are having a heart attack and you're closer to a Victorville unit, even though it's in San Bernardino County, we're going to respond. If we have the same problem in Victorville and the county unit is closer, it's going to respond. So it's better for the citizens all through the Victor Valley because it provides a response that is much more rapid. It also gives us more equipment to utilize on those fires and incidents, medical aids, traffic accidents, where maybe our first responding resources aren't quite adequate to deal with it. So by automatic aid, we don't take the time to call the dispatch center, call the other agency, ask them if they can send something, and then see if they do. It's automatically dispatched. We will respond to them, they will respond to us. Now, over a period of the next year or so, we'll monitor these responses and we'll see how much we go out, how much they come in, how we modify that. Operationally, the operations chief will sit down and develop the operational plan, including radio frequency use, who's going where. They'll feed that into Confire CAD system and develop a plan where everyone is playing on the same page. It also gives us opportunity to do joint training with San Bernardino County. They can come in and do joint training with us. One thing we're able to do with Chief Muncie, and he's very supportive of the city of Victorville, unlike problems we've had in the past, the county's willing to send an engine into the airport if we need that. And they were never willing to do that before. So that backs us up at the airport also, which, as you know, is quite a drive from the center of the city of Victorville. So in looking at this aid agreement, this is the last aid agreement that we need to put in place to be a cooperator with all of our allied agencies. We have Bureau of Land Management, we have CAL FIRE, we have Apple Valley. So by putting this into county, now we come into a more cohesive delivery of emergency services throughout the entire valley up here.
Thank you. And I was going to ask if the collaboration cut the current response time, and if so, what were they before and what will they look like now? But it seems like we're going to be capturing that data.
Yes, we will. We'll be gathering that data and we'll see exactly how efficient it is and whether we need to make some changes on it. But there are certain areas of the city. I'll cite Victor Valley College as one, and it shows that on the map provided to council. Our engine closest to Victor Valley College is on Silica and Hesperia Road. San Bernardino County engine 22 is 2 blocks from the college. So instead of waiting for engine 314 to respond into that area, we'll get county engine 22 coming. If it's a fire, we'll all go. If it's a medical aid, they can handle that. They are a paramedic engine company. So they're going to provide a much more efficient response in that area and possibly save some more lives. We'll be getting equipment on scene quicker. We hope over the next year or so we develop this and continue to work with county that we can develop a cohesive system up here.
Thank you. I have no further questions. I appreciate your responses.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. I just wanted to say that I'm very pleased that this agreement is before the council for consideration. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I don't, well, Mr. Metzler or Chief, if you'll correct me if I'm wrong. So is my understanding correct? This is all about mutual cooperation for the good of everyone. This basically puts people ahead of boundary. Is that a fair statement?
That's a very fair statement.
Okay, very good. All right, so that's all I have. at this point. Thank you. And so now we're going to open this up to the public comment period. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Yes, our first speaker is Maggie Martin.
Thank you. Ms. Martin?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening to you and the council. Listen, I'm just, I'm first of all, I'm a 100% plus supporter of mutual aid. We need it. We're a little more isolated out here, like when you think of Barstow, Lucerne, stuff like that. But I've heard a few people up there that have spoken say mutual aid from our surrounding supporting areas. So I'm going to post that. That's too vague for me. It's way too vague. So I want to present a hypothetical. So if we needed help on the western border out of 138 towards LA County, would that mean Palmdale, for example, out of LA County would roll to that western border because they could probably be there quicker than we can? The same thing with our southern border. Who would be, you know, who would roll on that? So I think it's, I don't know if it's in the backup materials, and I have not read them, but I think it's important that the public knows who these supporting agencies are. I knew before the meeting when the topic came up, we've had Apple Valley. We've had Apple Valley for a long time for mutual aid, maybe not officially, but I do remember hearing mutual aid agreements in the 4+ years I've been coming to council. So I would just like to know that information for clarity, because I remember, let me tell you what I remember, as I'm sure we all do. 20 years I lived in Sunset Ridge. My whole backside, west side of my house, patio, etc., faced the mountain range off 395. And we all remember the Blue Cut Fire. And I remember looking out the window one day and going, oh my gosh, huge plume of white smoke. And I'm calling this sheriff's dispatch. I'm blowing up the phones. I'm calling fire because it looked so much closer than it was. But for example, using that as the background, who responded to that massive Blue Cut Fire, you know, this far kind of out in the boondocks, for lack of better words, because it certainly couldn't have been handled by just whatever the 1 or 2 fire stations that exist out there in Phelan or Oak Hill. So I would like to have some clarity on that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Madam Clerk?
Those are all the speakers.
Thank you. The public comment period is now closed, and the chair brings this item back to the council. And the chair is going to invite a motion. So in the interest of not making council members feel like they have to read out every point by point on the recommendation as it's laid out on the agenda, if that's where they wish to go, it's perfectly appropriate to say, I move that the staff recommendation be adopted. So with that said, is there a motion?
I move that the recommendation be adopted as per this item.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
Second.
Thank you. So we have a first by Member Gomez and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Irving to adopt the staff's recommendation as posted on the agenda. Is there any discussion on the pending motion? Since Member Gomez moved the item, does she wish to begin?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't understand what you're asking me.
I'm so sorry. Since you were the proposer of the motion, I'd like to call on you first to make any comments as it relates to the pending motion.
Oh, no, I don't have any comments.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Becerra?
I just have a question. Mr. Metzler, how long have we had our fire department here in the city of Victorville?
Well, recently we stood the fire department back up in March, end of March of 2019.
Okay, thank you. It seems like that we just started it, but yeah, thank you. That's it. No further
Thank
questions.
you. Thank you. So this is typically the time for comments on the pending motion, but there are certainly times when it's appropriate to ask a question. Thank you, Member Becerra. Mayor Pro Tem Irving, any comments as it relates to the motion?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. And the chair has none. So the discussion period is now closed. Madam Clerk, will you kindly take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So the council has just taken action in accordance with the recommendation set out on the agenda. We move on to item number 5, approval of final tract map number 16894-2. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This is an item involving property generally at the southwest corner of Mojave Drive and Topaz Drive. And effectively what this item is doing is taking undeveloped property, raw property in its paper state, from paper state meaning it's in this case a tentative tract map phase, and actually taking it to the next step of actually doing a final recording, creating a legal subdivision, and having related security documents recorded to ensure public improvements ultimately get constructed to support this subdivision. With this is a precursor typically to actual construction, and this is a 90-lot subdivision. So it's envisioned that upon your approval tonight of this item, the next steps would be to start seeing actual development after they submit construction plans for the building of homes on this particular property.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, will you read the recommendation, please?
That the City Council approve final tract map number 16894-2, approve the subdivision improvement agreement between the subdivider Mojave Onyx Development Company and the city for final tract maps number 16894-1 and 16894-2, approve the lien agreement between the city and Mojave Onyx Development Company as a security for the public improvements for said tracts, and release the existing lien agreement between the subdivider and the city for tract 16894-1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, again, we have good backup data on the agenda. So are there any technical questions for clarification as to the staff report, beginning with Member Becerra?
No questions.
Thank you. Member Gomez.
Yes, so is this the one agenda item they were talking that's going to be for seniors, or is that something different?
I believe that to be something different. This is a single family home development is how it's being subdivided.
Okay, and then my next question is, not too long ago, we approved a lien agreements in lieu of, I don't know if we added securities or we said we didn't want a bond. Is this one going to be replaced with one of the alternatives that we just recently approved?
The answer to that is yes. You're probably remembering where we amended our code to provide an additional option of security mechanism to ensure security in place for the public improvements. Previously, it was akin to having cash bonds or insurance bonds on the property. This developer is exercising the use of a lien as a security mechanism to secure the improvements required under the subdivision agreement.
Okay, and so when I asked, thank you for that clarification. So when I asked if it was something that we were looking at for seniors and you said it wasn't, it reminded me, if we're going to be doing a security bond, did we already enlist and talked to, I think it's the individuals in the banking system to ensure that if that lien does get there and for whatever we are, the permit owner doesn't finish the infrastructure, what is our fallback? I know that was one of the questions that we had then, which is something that I like to propose on this term that we're looking at.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. So this lien agreement serves as security mechanism, typically up until the point of time that the property is actually to be developed, actually constructed upon. And until that time, there's no reason to really install those public improvements. And the way we modified the code to allow for this provision of lien agreements to be used. We did require that in connection with the pulling of actual construction permits, then bonds be placed to replace the lien agreement. So there was a different form of security in place. That's my general understanding of it. The author on this item is your city engineer, Mr. Brian Gangler, and he can answer more technically, or to the extent I didn't state that clear enough or correctly enough. He's certainly available to help me out on this item.
If I could just add, Mr. Metzler stated that correctly. I don't really have anything to add what he said unless you have more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gangler.
So then my follow-up question was, perhaps if we do have infrastructure already in place and years develop and then something of this nature comes back, that's when we have to secure the bonds. Is that how it works? Because I thought we did it right in front versus giving them an option to provide a lien, but I'm not savvy with that process. So this is where I'm trying to understand if approval tonight, we're not essentially leaving our tax-paying residents with something later on that we can't manifest because our budget doesn't have any funds for finishing off a project, for instance.
Yeah, I understand at least the concern. The question I'm trying to understand better, but I think the concern is clear in the sense that you're concerned that we could potentially be getting finding ourselves in a position of having to finish improvements that we wouldn't typically be able to afford. But that's not exactly how this process is working. Usually when those public improvements that you're speaking of are actually installed, they're typically installed in connection with vertical development. And so in this particular case, they might roll out a phase of, say, 15 homes at one time and then build the infrastructure related to that. When they make those improvements, there will actually be a stronger security mechanism in place, such as a security bond. And so in that particular case, we hold those bonds and we have the ability to exercise on those and liquidate them if there is if the developer doesn't perform. The alternative form of deposit would be a cash deposit as well, and we could withhold that cash and then use that to complete the public improvements if necessary. So we feel like we're fairly well covered on this from an exposure standpoint. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
No, I don't have any questions. I appreciate the robust conversation prior to me chiming in. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and I have no questions. All right, we're going to open up the public comment period. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
There are no speakers.
Thank you. That said, the public comment period is now closed, and the chair invites a motion. So the chair is going to invite a motion to for the council to take action in accordance with the recommendation laid out on the agenda. If any council member would wish to move that, then please feel free to say so moved.
Councilwoman Gomez would like to move that as invited by the chair.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you. So I have a first by Member Gomez, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Irving to take action in accordance with the recommendations set out on the agenda. As Member Gomez made the motion, does she wish to begin discussion on the pending motion?
No, thank you.
All right. As in no comments? As in no comments, or you don't wish to begin?
No, I don't have anything for this item.
Thank you. Member Becerra.
No comments.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
No comments.
Thank you. And I have none. With that said, the discussion is now closed. Madam Clerk, will you kindly take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra.
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
That motion passes.
Thank you. So the council's just taken action in accordance with the recommendations set out on the agenda. Going to now move on to item 6, adoption of resolution number 21-002, providing for the temporary granting of additional extensions of time for building permits and building permit plan review applications during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Relating to projects that are wanting to pursue ultimate construction and build out in Victorville, whether it's commercial, residential, or industrial, they're typically going to go through 2 paths or 2 processes to actually get to a point of building and completing a project. And this is intended to focus on timelines that are built into both an application to get a construction permit and then the actual time frame once a permit is issued to actually complete construction of a project. So because we have some code defining those particular timeframes, this item was put on the agenda because we have been approached by developers in the community that have been impacted. I think we've all been impacted to a large degree due to the COVID pandemic, and it slowed things down in terms of being able to process not only applications, but pursuing permits and constructing in time frames that are in accord with our code. So this item is intending to provide additional relief for those pathways to eventually get projects applied for and permits issued. The author on this item is Kevin Collins. He's available for the more technical, detailed questions relating to this item.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, will you read the recommendation, please?
That the Honorable City Council adopt resolution number 21-002 to allow for the temporary granting by the city building official of additional extensions of time for building permits and building permit plan review applications during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to technical questions for clarification as it relates to the staff report. Do any members wish to ask questions of Mr. Collins or Mr. Metzler, beginning with Member Becerra?
No questions.
Thank you. Member Gomez?
Yes. So what circumstances, if any, did the department/city building official determine that were beyond the control of the permit holder to prevent completion of the work? If so, did anything included did we include anything like, or will we, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, fire permits that are associated with the building permit?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that question is likely gonna best be answered perhaps using actual examples that we ran into from our chief building official, Mr. Kevin Collins.
Yes, we've had, basically they need to make the request in writing and demonstrating that they're having issues either getting manpower is one way on their job, or getting the materials, like as I put in the staff report, as far as windows, lumber, roofing material and appliances. Those are some of the issues that I've been hearing that these builders and homeowners are having difficult getting to. So basically, if they just put in writing that they're having any kind of issues due to COVID, it'll demonstrate to where I'll grant them the extension.
Okay. Since they have to use the key term COVID-19 in order for them to have some kind of grant be possible, and I'm presuming that once this passes with a majority, you would have the power thereafter to exercise any discrepancies. So my next question is pertinent to, if that is the case and it's going to elongate the process, can we also guarantee to some degree with our municipal code and with your knowledge and the knowledge of the department that when someone comes in and places a permit that they're going to be allotted that short time of period. I know right now we're addressing the long, but I'm also thinking about the people who are looking at things that they were able to get all these things settled aside. Maybe they're connected. I don't know. How would that be looking like?
That would be pretty much on schedule with everything else. Basically, this is going to help all of the, either if it's a resident trying to build a small patio cover, it's going to assist them to keep their project going up to the developer that are doing the large tracts. So it's basically, it's going to help everyone that's involved trying to get a plan review application through or get their permit closed out.
Okay. The next question is, if tonight's agenda does indeed get passed with whether it's supermajority or majority of the votes, is the city already in compliance with California building codes, with the Victorville City Municipal Code, with construction permits for structures and the such, like project policies and any other standardized processes that must be adhered to once we make the decision as a body to adopt or whatever happens?
Yes, we have the Victorville Municipal Code in place for those timelines on applications and permits.
Okay, and in regards to the building permit plan review, does the city of Victorville have the project schedule that allows for the city standard review times? And if so, will you direct the council to the page on the agenda?
Yes, we have that. And then the page on the agenda for the current municipal code, or what we're proposing to do?
For the plan review.
For the plan review, that will be on, as far as background, on the first page, 129. Section 16-5.01.100. That's for the current 180-day period for an application for plan review.
Are you section 16-5.0? Is that what you said? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, it's on the background section.
Okay.
And it'll be on page 129, 16-5.01.100. That's our current Victorville Municipal Code
Okay.
for application and plan review.
Okay, so this is the permit plan review that we're talking about, right? With the project schedule that's going to allow this individual to continue on.
Yeah, that's what we currently have, and then we're going to modify it. Currently, what we have is we're allowed one 180-day extension for the project. And what this will do, also there's some exemptions in there, like if we're in a code cycle. Currently, we every 3 years, triennial, we have a state code adoption. So if they ask for requests that will exceed that, normally that will be exempt from that. But what this will do, for example, if I have a project that's in, because we just recently adopted the 2019 code, this will allow me to grant more than one extension for that plan review instead of just one.
Okay, and then my last question is, what is the actual amount of the permit/development fees and the engineering inspection fees that the city has already received? And is this still waiting to be seen in the future? I'm asking that question because there's a substandard of creating a pre-application, getting everything set, but I want to understand if we've already gone through that process, and if we did, this seems like it's an intermediate process. Like we have to go back and look at all those fees and how those fees are going to be applied, because I'm sure this is costing somebody money.
When they submit an application, what we do is we charge a plan review fee only on that. And then once the plans are approved, then we assign all the permit fees in place on that. So as far as the applicant or the permittee holder, it helps them out with those fees.
Okay, and this is not a question, this is just to provide comment as to why I asked the question. It looks like it wasn't the first submittal, I can see that, of the application for the plan review that has already definitely been an issue. the building plan review fee is based on what I hear is a job valuation. And there's, the departments can look at these building fee schedules and plan for those reviews. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Madam Clerk, I could barely hear you. Thank you, Member Gomez. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
I don't really have any questions, but I would like to thank Mr. Collins for giving us some really good examples as to why we might want to consider adopting the resolution before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And as for the chair, Mr. Collins, is there any requirement to confirm the legitimacy of someone saying they're having difficulty getting the products or anything that might be involved in their project that would precipitate a request for an extension of time?
At this time, basically just put in writing that you're having difficulties getting those materials or equipment on the job is all I'll need. And if I see that it's being abused and there's multiple ones coming in, then yeah, I'll probably ask for more evidence at that time.
Okay.
But for the first one, I'll take
Okay.
the word for it. And
And in theory, how far could you see that going out? Let's say someone early on starts experiencing difficulty in their granted time extensions. How far can that really go on a project?
I guess basically as long as we are in a emergency proclamation, we can keep going. But now once we stop our emergency proclamation, depending on timeline, I'll be able to grant one additional one if they're still, because I'm sure that as soon as it stops, we're still going to have some issues getting the labor force back up to speed and the materials back on. But to answer your question, it's really kind of hard. It's going to be based on how long this pandemic's going to last.
Okay. Well, listen, I think this is, it's a valiant effort to come alongside people in very, very difficult times. All right, with that said, we're going to open this up to the public comment period. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Yes, Maggie Martin.
Thank you. Ms. Martin?
Hi again, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Listen, I just want to make something very clear. I'm speaking directly to the chair. I am very.
Martin, you're speaking to the entire council.
Well, that's what I meant. If I was
Yes.
there, I'd be looking at you is what I meant. I apologize
Thank
to the whole
you.
council. But listen, I'm not getting any younger here, okay? So one of the things that I value the most and I'm selfish about the most is how I spend my time and who I spend it with. So on council meeting Tuesday, believe me, my daughter knows, don't bother me on council meeting Tuesday. Don't come in the bedroom, you know, while the meeting's going on. Don't let my granddaughter interrupt me. But I'm going to tell you, I get really frustrated. And before I scold, I'm going to compliment. Ms. Gomez was on a really good roll tonight so far. But when you have somebody else to do your legwork, which is simply tell me what page it is on the backup documents, and instead of doing it yourself, why don't they get paid to be the council member? It's part of her job to know where her references are. They make those little sticky tabs and everything. So if she knows ahead of time, which she does, what her questions are going to be, then prior to arriving to the council or doing it virtually, however you want to call it, bookmark those and do your research accordingly. And this is what consumes, this behavior is what consumes so much.
Okay. Ms. Martin, I'm going
time.
to ask you to speak directly now at this point. I think we understand what you're saying, but if you would kindly speak exactly to the item before us.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is because somebody else had to answer questions for her that she should have known. And that's basically all I have. Just don't waste my time with that. You know what I mean? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Madam Clerk?
There are no other speakers.
Thank you. Public comment period is now closed, and Chair brings this item back to the council. The Chair invites a motion. Does any member wish to move the recommendation as laid out on the agenda?
So moved. We
Second.
follow the
Oh, I'm sorry, forgive me.
That's good.
Thank you. Member Becerra?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So moved.
So moved. All right. Mayor Pro Tem Irving, did you wish to second that?
I did second it. I'm so sorry.
That's
No
okay. It's all good.
worries.
It's all
Okay.
good.
No worries. All right, so we have a motion made by Member Becerra, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Irving to move that staff recommendation be adopted. We'll begin discussion with Member Becerra on the pending motion.
No questions.
Thank you. Member Gomez? This is the time for comments on the pending motion.
No, none.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Irving?
No comments.
Thank you very much. And the chair has none. Discussion period's closed. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
That motion passes.
Thank you. So the council has adopted the recommendation as laid out on the agenda. And we're going to move on to item 7, acceptance of the Homeland Security Grant for the acquisition of automatic license plate readers for mobile trailer retrofit. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I'm pleased to be bringing this item before you. This item is dealing with the acceptance of a Homeland Security grant and also making a related expenditure. So it's asking for appropriations on both sides, the revenue and expense side of the ledgers. And this effectively will be used, this grant will be used to acquire 2 mobile ARPR cameras and actually add to the fixed cameras that we already have in place at intersections throughout. This being mounted to a mobile speed trailer will allow us the flexibility to move this throughout the community for a variety of different reasons. We're finding great successes. We've reported to you previously, and we continue to find that similarly natured success in helping solve crimes quicker. So this is just to complement an effort that we've already put in place in using ALPR technology to solve a variety of crimes that we're dealing with throughout the community. The author on the item is our police chief, John Wickham. He can answer the more technical items, the more technical questions you may have related to this item. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, will you read the recommendation?
That the City Council approve the acceptance of the Homeland Security Grant in the amount of $26,683, authorize the expenditure of $23,234.92 to Vigilant Solutions for 2 mobile ALPR cameras to be placed on an existing trailer, authorize the city manager to execute all transactional related documents for the acceptance of the grant award, along with any expenditure contract documents with Vigilant Solutions, and adopt Resolution 21-007, amending the fiscal year 2021 budget, approving the increase in revenue and expenditures for this grant.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we're going to open it up for technical questions for clarification as to the staff report. So Mr. Metzler, on just generalized questions, detailed questions on APLR, I guess could be to ALPR. I always get that wrong. To Captain Wickham. So we can begin the questions with Member Gomez. Member Gomez, are you with us?
I have lost her.
I can't. Okay. I can mute myself now. Unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yes. So Madam Clerk, has Member Gomez always been on co-host status?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know what's happening, Member Gomez, but as far as the city goes, you have had the ability to unmute. So I'm wondering if
Well, I have this under recording on my camera, so you can say what you want to say, but it's all recorded on what's happening. When I try to unmute myself, it'll say that I'm unable to, but I don't know if it's because something happened with the data, and when I went back in, I don't know what it did, but
Yeah, I don't know. I just know that always with co-host status, you have that authority and that ability to do that. And I just don't know, because I'm not an IT kind of a person or a techie person by any means, but maybe at some point it might be helpful to confer with IT in the city and see if there's some difficulty with running multiple devices, if that can somehow interfere. I just don't know. But anyway, so do you have any technical questions for clarification as it relates to item number 7, Member Gomez?
yes. So my first question is it the purpose of the HSGP, which is the Homeland Security Grant Program, to enhance the ability of local governments as well as nonprofits to prevent, protect against, respond to, and recover from terrorist acts? Did you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I heard the question. Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Unfortunately, that's a question that I don't have an answer for. I'll ask Police Chief Wickham if he's got an answer for that, as I believe it's the police department that's regularly applying for this grant.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Council, this grant occurs annually through Homeland Security and allows us to purchase equipment utilizing the grant funds. And in this case, we've already applied portions of this grant in the past fiscal years to outfit cameras on a mobile trailer. And we have 2 trailers, and this will outfit a second trailer. And also, like the city manager said, we will be continuing with the rollout of the ALPRs, both fixed point surveillance or fixed point cameras at intersections and the mobile cameras.
Okay, and the next one is this type of grant once authorized by Congress and implemented by the DHS, which is the Department of Home Security, to help strengthen the nation's communities against potential terrorist attacks?
Well, it assists law enforcement with the prevention of crimes. It assists us with solving crimes. And to answer your questions with regards to terrorists, absolutely any vehicles that have been entered into the system with wanted subjects may be related to terrorist attacks, such as in San Bernardino, is certainly beneficial and provides safety to our citizens.
Okay, and then my next question is, will the city of Victorville be reporting out in council meetings any deficiencies identified in the effectiveness review with FEMA? If so, I'd like to know how we're going to look at that as council, if that's
Okay,
even
so thank you, Member Gomez. So the chair is going to call for the orders of the day. So this item is related specifically to accepting the Homeland Security grant. And if the questions could be tailored more closely to that specific purpose, it would be appreciated, Member Gomez.
Yes, so I did my own research and I went to the actual application. The application is not here, and my questions are purviewed based on the 2019 and the 2020 application. I know they applied in 2019, so they're very closely to what was offered and what we had in front of us. The next question is, when the report discusses the ALPR system as aids in investigating personnel to track the movement of these criminals, leading to increased apprehension rate, how does an ALPR camera that is mounted on street poles, street lights, highway overpasses, mobile trailers, or attached to police squad cars assist in that manner?
Okay, so Member Gomez, my recommendation at this point is that, because I can see that you have questions about the ALPR system in general and actually in specific. And so the chair would certainly invite you, when it comes time to ask for agenda items, maybe that would be a good good place to bring that up so that we can have a fuller discussion about ALPRs. But this agenda item is specifically geared toward whether we wish to take the grant, accept the grant from Homeland Security. So I'm going to move you on beyond that. And if you have no further questions as it relates specifically to the grant, we're going to go ahead and move on.
Yes, it is. Had you read the grant, you would have noticed that I verbatim took words from the reporting, but I don't know if you did read it, but I'm not here to argue with you. My next question is.
Thank you. Member Gomez, if you hold just a moment, I do appreciate that, and certainly there, and this is for the benefit of the entire council. So the backup data, the staff will, routinely put in lots of information that just helps us get a good feel for the entire feel of the item, but to focus on matters that are kind of incidental to the main focus isn't helpful for moving the item forward. So we want to make sure that we're just focused on those discussions that help us understand whether or not we should, in this case, accept the grant. So you can go ahead with your next question.
So all the questions that I asked are pertinent for me making a decision if I do want to or not.
We're going to move on, Member Gomez. Thank you.
Okay, has the law enforcement department met with I think it's called Vigilante Solutions, to mitigate and discuss an action where the camera and the computer software to indiscriminately scan license plates for the people that pass by, or any references to those vehicles are including, are we going to be including these in databases that we're going to be able to sell or give to other agencies as well?
Okay, at this point, the chair is going to stop this line of questioning. Again, it's focusing on incidentals. The chair invites the council member to request an agenda item so that we can understand more about ALPRs. We're now going to move on as Councilmember Gomez refuses to take the guidance of the chair. Mayor Pro Tem Irving, do you have technical questions for clarification?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. And the chair has none. We're going to go to the public comment period.
Mayor, there's
Madam
four
Clerk,
of us here.
Did I not call on you? I didn't. No. I'm used to calling you on first, Member Becerra.
I just have a question for the captain. Captain, I see here it says we're going to retrofit a trailer. Are we retrofitting the trailer, or no, they're going to come up and retrofit it for us?
Yes, the company will provide the insulation by the provider, the Vigilant.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies again, Member Becerra. The chair has none. We're going to open this up to public comment. Madam Clerk.
Yes, Councilmember Gomez.
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Gomez wishes to speak as an audience member, a private citizen. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, so as I was stating, there's questions that are very pertinent that I was asking for rationale. The last question that I didn't get to address fully was, we have a contract with Solutions, and it's a large page, and I don't know if you guys read it, but in the readings, there's things that are going to happen. And that was germane, that I understand what is happening from the mouths of elected officials, but also our staff members, but they weren't addressed. Instead, it was surpassed. So I have to use the comment period to ask a couple of other things, or maybe just now provide comment. Some versions of ALPRs can snap pictures of a vehicle's occupants and create unique vehicle IDs. States such as Rhode Island have already directed law enforcement to look for New York plates in order to identify people who should be directed to self-quarantine, as increasingly happening with the ongoing COVID-19. Law enforcement uses ALPR data. It's not capturing the things that we need to capture. Many of the departments are using vendors like the ones that we have today. We know we're looking for approval of Vigilante Solutions, which is owned by Motorola Solutions, which is a leading provider in ALPR data to police, which is based in Livermore, California. What this company does is it sells access to all databases of more than 5 billion license plate scans collected across the country, including 1.5 billion.
Ms. Gomez, again, I'm going to bring you back. The subject is the grant of monies from Homeland Security.
Yes. And so it's provided by a law enforcement agency. This only creates a revolving door of license plate scanners for law enforcement to vigilante solutions.
Okay, Ms. Gomez, I'm going to admonish you to stay on the subject that is before us. If not, we're going to move on.
And I am on the subject. You just don't want me to talk. That's your
Madam Clerk, will you kindly mute the audience member as the audience member refuses to stay on topic with the focus of the agenda item, which is accepting of a grant for the ALPRs. Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers?
There are no other speakers.
Thank you. The public comment period is now closed. The chair brings this item back to the council. Chair invites a motion if any member wishes to move the item as it's laid out in the recommendation on the agenda. Please feel free to say so moved.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
I'll make a substitute motion to table this item.
Okay, we have a substitute motion to table this item to an unspecific time. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies. We're back to the basic motion, which is adopting the staff recommendation. We have a motion by Member Becerra. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. There's a second by Mayor Pro Tem Irving. We're now going to have discussion on the pending motion as it was made by Member Becerra. Do you wish to begin the comments?
No questions. Thank you.
No questions, no comments. Thank you. Member Gomez is precluded by policy from speaking as she spoke as a member of the public. And Mayor Pro Tem Irving, do you have any comments?
No.
Thank you. Mayor Jones has none, and the discussion period is now closed. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Thank you. So we've just adopted the recommendation as laid out by staff on the agenda. We're going to move on to item number 8, storm drainage fee study. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This item is dealing particularly with the request to amend an existing contract to take on some additional work related to the development of a service study, which is typically a precursor to any recommendation for rates related to a particular service, typically utility-related services, but in this particular case, it applies to storm drain user fee services. So with that, we had actually started this item some time ago. Time has passed. We do have some additional work to do, but effectively, we do have a current user fee in place. It's a user fee that's been in place since 1993. And the revenue it generates effectively has become what we believe is insufficient to properly provide storm drain services throughout the city. So with that, staff has carried forward a recommendation. The author on this item is your city engineer, Mr. Brian Gangler, and he's available for any particular or more technical questions you might have on this item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, will you read the recommendation?
That the City Council approve Amendment Number 1 to the Consultant Professional Services Agreement with MBS Government Finance Group in the amount of $19,620 for the storm drainage fee study.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we're going to move on to technical questions for clarification as to the staff report, and we'll begin with Member Becerra.
No questions.
Thank you. Member Gomez?
So when you refer to a storm drainage fee study, do you also mean a stormwater utility fee?
I would understand that to be one and the same, but I would actually ask Brian Gangler to confirm that because he's the expert in this field.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Yes, that's accurate. the current fee that we call the storm drain utility fee funds both operations and maintenance and some capital expenses. And this fee would be essentially to fund the same type of activities, ongoing operations and maintenance, and it could also fund capital projects, equipment, or even something like replacing or a new storm drain.
Okay, and then how are public streets included or excluded in this study?
This would be if such a fee would be imposed, it would be a citywide study, a citywide fee, and so it could be used for anything identified in the study. It could include, as an example, storm drain maintenance in a street, or even replacing a storm drain in a street, or a new storm drain in a street.
Okay, and according to the report, the revenues have been insufficiently adequately unable to fund the expenses for the ongoing drainage operations, maintenance, and capital needs. So how have we been paying for this?
Well, over time, as we've prepared the annual budget that the city council approves, we have been able to maintain a cash balance in this fund. But over time, as costs have escalated, operations and maintenance costs have increased, and project costs have increased for construction. We now are projecting that we will not have a sufficient revenue to cover all of our needs in the city. And that's why that we wanted to study this to see if there were an additional fee imposed, what would that fee need to be, and what would be a reasonable fee.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, can I embellish on that just a little bit?
Yes, please.
So to try to bring this more to a practical level, because we've had an experience recently that I think the council and the public can relate to. But if you look at the staff report on its face, it looks like we've been balancing our revenues and expenditure, and we even have a cash balance. So one would think the storm drain fund is not doing all that bad. But the difference here is that we're effectively, with the limited amount of revenue we're generating, basically balancing the budget every year, so as we don't deplete that cash balance and eventually run out of cash. But that's not to say we're doing everything we need to do to properly manage and maintain the storm drain system. And I'll give you an example. I don't know that it's the best example, but recently we had a major storm drain failure at La Mesa and Amethyst. And there's been years and years of erosion that contributed to basically the eroding of that metal spiral pipe that was serving as a storm drain in that area. And it's possible, had you had the proper management plan in place and the proper funding in place, it's possible that you could have done things similar to how we manage our sewer systems now, to where you actually put cameras in the pipe. You do on a regular basis investigative surveys inside the pipe to find out where you've got wears, tears, breaks, potential threats. And you can actually undertake a preventative maintenance program to prevent perhaps what happened at La Mesa and Amethyst. And so I guess using that as an example, I think the point that I would like to make, similar to what we do in all fee studies, we take a view of what is necessary to properly maintain the system. In the current state that we have as it relates to storm drain, we're not doing that. We're basically just managing revenues versus expenditures and doing as much as we can, which we're telling you we believe is not enough. And I think that example and the city engineer probably could come up with others, but there likely are a lot of things not being done because we're constrained from a funding perspective.
Okay, thank you for that. When is the last time the city considered a pay-as-you-go basis rather than taking the long-term debt?
Can you provide a little more context on that question? Because I'm not understanding it in relation to this item?
Yes, I was going to provide that within the commentary, but I was reading on the considerations, and it looks like since 1993, we've had this in place for $4 that we charge our, I would think, property owners and their parcels. And I realized that after 20 years, there's other cities, I think, I don't know if it was like the city of Salinas or another city, they were doing something to mitigate instead of being what we're doing. So right now we're trying to see if that fee study is going to be valid so that we can increase instead of $4. I don't know how much it's going to be, but a lot of our property owners are not going to be able to either understand why we're upping the fee, if that's what we are, if we're going to do a Prop 218. I don't see that within our agenda. So I was wondering, when is their opportunity and how can we involve them so that they don't see their sewer fees just go up? I know it's a public service though.
Yeah, and so this is a precursor to any steps that would involve public awareness, public hearings, approval of the actual fee. This is effectively the beginning, kind of at the beginning of the process, to where we're trying to figure out what is first necessary in terms of revenue to satisfy the expenditure needs to properly maintain the system. So what you're talking about will come down the path if we can get to a point resulting from this study where we can actually recommend moving forward with an additional fee.
Okay. And the next question is why 28 years? You know, is it 30 years and now it's the time? I just don't understand why it took us so long. There's the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the California of Environmental and Conservation. So I just want to know the rationale of Victorville, why Victorville after 28 years decided to look at that. I don't understand that part.
There is one reason why we're considering it now, and it has more so to do with changes in law that occurred, I believe, in 2017. And Doug Matthews, our Public Works Director, might be on the line as well to help me with that. But I believe it was in about 2017 where some laws changed with respect to the treatment of storm drains, similarly to other utilities such as I believe sewer and water. And I'm not prepared to speak in greater detail on that, but that has kind of been the trigger for us to reevaluate the need at this time.
Okay, so there's going to be a hearing in this matter, I suppose. And if that's the case, we're going to impose on doing Prop 218 so everything is measured up. I think that's what I heard you say formally.
We haven't gotten to that point. We haven't even got to the decision-making point of whether or not we're going to bring it forward, because I think we've got to have a sense first of what this fee study results to where we can actually get to the stage of making a recommendation.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Metzler, can you help me if we look at the agenda item under I just lost it. Under the discussion section, in the first paragraph, it says there have been delays in the completion of the study due to staff workload over the past year. What specifically about that contributes to that $19,000 increase, $19,620?
Yes, and we did look into that, and if I might, because this was supervised by the city engineer, I'll defer to the city engineer to answer that.
Thank you. Mr. Gingler.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. It probably wasn't explained well enough in the discussion, but actually the proposed increase is not due to the delay in the study. It's really due to additional tasks that are needed. When the scope was developed originally, we didn't anticipate running through as many scenarios for the fee, because we now now that we know more, we anticipate that there will be more assumptions and more scenarios that we have to test, basically to see what range of a fee would be reasonable if we do want to move forward with this. So actually, there were additional tasks that were added that were not included in the original scope of services. This is something that's somewhat new for us. We've never embarked on a study quite like this before. It's a little bit different than a sewer or a water rate study. So quite frankly, we're learning about this at this study as we proceed through it, since it is new to us.
All right, well, that helps a lot, but that leads me then to another question. When we granted this service agreement, did that company not have some responsibility and at least when they were making their proposal to the city to at least help educate us? Not that that should ever be necessary, but isn't there some onus on that company to help us see what the potentials are in the project?
Yeah, I suppose that's a fair statement. I do know that there have not been a large number of studies for this type of a fee. That there have been some studies done for several cities, but it is not as bread and butter as say a water rate or a sewer rate study.
So there's some special level of expertise involved in this, it sounds like.
Yes, there is.
Okay. All right. And that's all I have. So now we're going to, thank you, Mr. Gangler. We're going to open up the public comment period. Madam Clerk, are there any requests?
Yes, Valentine Godina.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Godina.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As a property owner, I understand the need to raise fees on issues, on items here and there. I also appreciate it when I am informed ahead of time of what's going to happen so I can budget myself. Let me give you an analogy, a little off track, and I come back. We're going to have Super Bowl Sunday coming up pretty soon. And we're going to have people sitting back and criticizing the coaches. He should have done this, he should have done that. But the coaches are there because they are the experts who know their team, who know their weaknesses, and who know how to address them. And we have people in place to foresee these issues and give us, the property owners, a little bit of a heads up that there's going to be a fee coming because we have an issue coming up. Now, I already know, and everybody already knows, that water fees go up regardless of what happens because we don't have enough water, and our pipes, we just found out that because of the lack of water, our pipes need to be repaired. When we have too much rain, we need to increase the fees because now our pipes can't handle the pressures of the waters that were coming. So we already know the water fees go up regardless, and that's a pretty good excuse. But for stuff like this, is drain pipes, we should have, and I believe that we're paying for somebody to look out for these things and give us a heads up. Because for any property owner to just, oh, guess what? You have a new fee. When did that happen? Yesterday. How did it happen? Well, the people in charge were asleep, and now they found out that we have it. So here you go, pay it. We have no recourse. We have no alternative. We have to pay it because it's a service we need. And that is holding the residents and the property owners hostage to the lack of responsibility on those who should be looking out for us. And I wish somebody would take responsibility and prevent this and give us a heads up, because paying the extra fees is not the issue. The issue is catching us off guard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Godina. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Gomez.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Ms. Gomez, speaking as an audience member, you're muted. I can see that your mic is muted, Member Gomez.
Okay, so as the report addresses, it says since 1993, the city has implemented a storm drain fee of $4 per developed parcel and has remained the same for yet 28 years. After the revenues have exceeded the supposed cost escalation, to continue at a rate of $4 to service its operations, maintenance, and capital needs. Prop 218 exempted water, sewer, and refused collection from a public hearing at which property owners may lodge a protest and then a ballot proceeding to gain approval of the voters consisting of property owners. Stormwater fees were not explicitly called out. In 1999, the city of Salinas adopted the storm drain fees without balloting under the presumption that storm drainage was a type of sewer. The city was challenged in the courts. The courts of appeal held that the stormwater drainage fee was illegally imposed by the city of Salinas. This decision clarified the position that a property-related fee is the appropriate vehicle for storm drainage services, not a benefit assessment, and that there is a fee is subject to the balloting requirements.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Madam Clerk, any further requests?
Maggie Martin.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Good evening again, Your Honor and Counsel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I just want to say that I have some concerns. It seems to be an overriding theme of some people's comments that the city has to notify them ahead of time. The city has to have a workshop. The city has to invite the public. A lot of demands from the people of the public for those, or not a lot, some demands from people of the public for that. I totally disagree with that. I've been a property owner for 20 years in Victorville, and I always got a little bit of advance notice if something was going up. It might have been one billing cycle, possibly two, but I would like to remind people, the people in the public, that we as the constituency, we vote for who we want on the council. And the reason we vote for them, that's our democracy. We allow them to speak for us in the way they deem fit, meaning their decisions. Everything that goes on with the city is up to the council. It is not up to any one individual member. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Madam Clerk, any further requests?
No further speakers.
Thank you. The public comment period is now closed. The chair brings this item back to the council and invites a motion. Does any member wish to move the staff recommendation be adopted?
So moved.
Thank you. We have a first by Member Becerra. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Irving. To adopt the recommendation as laid out on the agenda. So now we're going to enter into discussion on the pending motion, beginning with Member Becerra.
No questions.
Okay, no comments. Member Gomez is precluded from speaking as she used the opportunity to speak as a private citizen. Mayor Pro Tem Irving?
No, I don't have any questions. However, I just
comments. Yes.
Give me comments, right?
Yes.
What's before us is a fee study, correct? And we are amending the agreement with the professional service to include an additional scope of work, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
no, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Irving. And so let me just piggyback onto that. So this is all about those additional services. And as I understand it, this really is about, this whole project really is about tending to our critical infrastructure and making sure that we're taking on those capital improvement projects before disaster strikes, so to speak. So I want to thank our staff for really working to be ahead of the curve on this, I hope, so that we don't have a situation like we had not too long ago on La Mesa. All right, so with that said, the discussion period is now closed. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
That motion passes.
Thank you. So we've adopted the recommendation as laid out by staff on the agenda. We're going to now move on to item 9, which is the consideration of appointments to the Planning Commission and Community Services Advisory Committee. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Yes, this item is placed on the agenda for you to consider. Information contained in the agenda packet for Councilmember Becerra's nominee for the CSAC member, Mr. Brandon Dixon, Councilmember Gomez nominee for Planning Commissioner, Mr. Bill Thomas, and also for Councilmember Gomez, Adrian Belcher. Though of all the candidates for those respective positions, I believe it's Mr. Belcher that we didn't receive anything on. But this item has been placed on for your consideration, and any action is at your discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. And so with that said, Madam Clerk, the recommendation, please.
Consideration, or that the city council consider the following Councilmember Becerra's nominee for CSAC member Brandon Dixon, Councilmember Gomez's nominee for Planning Commissioner Bill Thomas, and Councilmember Gomez's nominee for CSAC member Adrian Belcher.
All right, thank you very much. So before we move on, as we do have backup data for Mr. Dixon and Mr. Thomas, we're going to proceed with those nominations and perhaps appointments this evening. We're going to have to take up at a future date Member Gomez's nominee for the CSAC member, Mr. Belcher, as the council is not privy to any backup information on her nominee. So with that said, we're going to begin with a Member Becerra's nominee for CSAC, Brandon Dixon. Member Becerra, do you care to advocate for your nominee?
There we go. Mr. Dixon does have extensive background. As you can see in his letter that he put, he has extensive background in management tech and everything with Southwest Gas in Monterey Park and Anaheim. I feel as a project manager, he would be a good fit into our CSAC, especially after we just finished passing the parks billing and everything we did. So hopefully you guys vote for him.
Okay, thank you, Member Becerra. Do any council members wish to ask any questions for clarification of Member Becerra that might help in their evaluation of Mr. Dixon to be appointed? Member Gomez?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you, and the chair has none. So with that said, you know what, let me do this before we move on because we ran into this the last time. So let me, because we can quickly get into a vote and I don't want to skip public comments on this. So Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak on any of the nominees for this item?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. So the chair does bring this item back to the council. So, Member Becerra, do you wish to move that your nominee be appointed?
Yes, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a first by Member Becerra and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Irving to appoint Mr. Dixon to the CSAC committee. Is there any discussion on that motion from any council members?
No discussion.
Okay, as I hear none on this, the discussion period is now closed. Madam Clerk, will you kindly take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
All right, well, thank you, Member Becerra, for bringing Mr. Dixon to us. Congratulations, Mr. Dixon. You're now on the CSAC committee. All right, we're going to move on now to Councilmember Gomez. You have a nominee for us for the Planning Commission, Mr. Thomas. Would you like to present your nominee to the council? Member Gomez.
Yeah, the council has information in front of them. If they have questions, they can ask me if they like.
Certainly. So any council members, would you like to ask questions of Member Gomez to help you to understand Mr. Thomas's background or suitability for the Planning Commission position?
I just have a question. Has Mr. Thomas and Councilmember Gomez worked together on any projects?
Could you reframe your question because I don't understand it?
Have you guys worked together?
We're not colleagues. I don't understand your question. I don't pay him. He doesn't.
Mayor Jones, do you understand? Does she know his projects? Has she ever worked with him? I don't know how else to word it.
I don't know. Member Gomez, do you have any professional affiliation with Mr. Thomas?
There you go.
Well, I have professional affiliation with you, with Leslie Irvin. So if that's what she's asking.
In the private sector, I'm presuming in the private sector.
Private sector? I don't understand the question. I just know I brought Bill Thomas because he's someone in the community who has been the president of the NAACP, who the community for over 30 years. I know him as much as you probably know each other when you guys talk to one another. I don't know what the question is. I mean, this is a sincere way of my response. I don't know any other way to respond.
Okay. Member Becerra?
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't have any questions. I'm familiar with Mr. Thomas.
Thank you. All right, so I just have one question of Member Gomez. So in the past, with your prior appointment to Planning Commission, I know that at one point you sought to have him removed, and that the thinking at the time was largely held that it was because he wasn't voting according to your philosophies. And so can you tell us if Mr. Thomas, do you have confidence that he has a clear understanding that if he were to be appointed, he would have absolute autonomy on the Planning Commission, that he's not a direct extension of the council?
You know, it's very interesting that you asked the manner and the way you did, because I felt that it was your opinion, because I've never thought about anybody that I appoint to any degree to have to come back and report to me. They have their First Amendment right. They're free to do as they wish within their own consciousness. So I don't even understand why that type of a question would be even asked unless there's a presumption of the person speaking that perhaps that's the case. It's never been. This is the first time I've ever heard of it. So thank you for feeling that.
I appreciate that, Member Gomez, but that wasn't the feeling of the council at the time. But so can I understand then from your response that Mr. Thomas has a clear understanding that he would have complete autonomy as a member of the Planning Commission if he were appointed?
If you'd like to ask him and he's on, I think you should ask him.
Member Becerra, the question is posed to you. The council will not ask nominees questions. Would you like to answer that? It could have a bearing on his
Gomez,
appointment.
not Becerra, Mayor Jones.
Member Becerra, I'm so sorry.
Stop.
My apologies. Member Gomez, I would invite you to answer the question because it's important to me, maybe important to the rest of the council. The council members are not going to ask.
Yes, and I would object to your question. I asked it into the regard that I best can. If you want to ask the question again, you'll get the same response. So this is, if you don't like my response, can't do anything about it. Make your own decision.
Member Gomez, this is not personal. This is just like a yes or no. Is it your feel that he has autonomy? It sounds to me like that's yes.
I've already asked the question and I already answered it. I can't produce anything else.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that it's clear. I'm going to take that as a yes. All right, there being no further questions, Member Gomez, would you like to move that your nominee be appointed to the Planning Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Gomez, a second by Member Becerra. Is there any further discussion on the nomination? And I actually don't. All right, so with that said, Madam Clerk, will you kindly take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
That motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. Thomas is now our newest planning commissioner. Congratulations to him. Thank you, Member Gomez, for bringing him forward. And again, one final apology to Member Gomez. See, I did it again. Member Becerra. I have a number of times this evening referred to her as Member Gomez, so my apologies. All right. Huh?
I said, I'll go back to my maiden name. Stop.
Nothing intended. All right, so moving on to item 10, public comments. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Yes. Councilmember Gomez.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Excuse me. This is not Councilmember Gomez. This is Ms. Gomez speaking as a private citizen.
So I'm going to go ahead and take the liberty to do public comments at this moment because I've not had the opportunity to do so as a council member. So with that, I'd like to just start off by saying that tomorrow we have the Victor Valley Chamber of Commerce at 8 in the morning, and the City Council would be presenting to the Chamber what transpired in the whole year of 2020. This presentation is going to be posted in the city's website, for my understanding. Also, mañana quiero que ustedes sepan que va a haber un video de los regidores que tienen aquí enfrente de usted. Van a ser situados para presentar lo que sucedió el año pasado y supuestamente este informe va a estar en la red bajo las presentaciones de la ciudad, donde bajan todo para que ustedes puedan tener acceso a ello. Also, I'd like to thank Tammy Annabelle, who is on here today. She did serve in the United States Marine Corps. Muchas gracias a la señorita Tammy Annabelle, que está aquí con nosotros, que sirvió siendo parte de los marinos. Y también quiero darle gracias al policía que se llama Arias. Él está haciendo muchas cosas para nosotros y él ha presentado su arma para ser una persona que puede estar con nosotros y puede ser parte de nuestra unión, aunque no hable el idioma. I'd also like to thank Sheriff Deputy Jay Arias for his service to the community and to public safety. También quiero darle las gracias al Padre Steele por su reconocimiento a personajes de la comunidad. I'd also like to thank Father Steele from Mosaic for putting together recognition of veterans in our community that I had the pleasure of attending and meeting them in person on January 13th. That's Sergeant Edward Parsadanian, who served October 29 through 1968 through October 11th in 1972 with the U.S. Armed Forces in Vietnam. Sergeant Norman Parsadanian, who served July 17th from 1965 to August 25th, 1968, who served in the U.S. Armed Forces in Southeast Asia. Private First Colonel Lowell C. Schultz, who served in 1895. He was born April 17th and he died 12/31/1961, and he served in the U.S. Army, World War II in France. Sergeant William Steele, who served March 17 and 41 to 45 in World War II in the UK. Sergeant Robert Erickson, who served in 66 to 69. He's served in the U.S. Army's 1st Infantry Division in Vietnam. And lastly, Sergeant Shelley Alfieri, who served April 14, 66 to March 11th, 71 in the U.S. Air Force, Vietnam. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Madam Clerk?
There are no other speakers.
Thank you. So the chair brings this back to the council. We're going to move on to item number 11, City Manager Reports. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. 3 items to share with you. First, on the environmental side, we've got an event coming up, Shred Fest and Recycling event. That's this weekend, Saturday, February 6th at 8 a.m. To noon. That's going to be over at the Victor Valley MRF, which is over on Abbey Lane. And this is to deal with any shredding, free confidential document shredding, plus free recycling of TVs, other electronic appliances, scrap metal, cardboard, mattresses, and box springs. So that'll be open to all residents of the Victor Valley. Information is provided on our website. That's sponsored by Burtech Waste Industries and the City of Victorville. On the engineering side, capital improvement side, I'd like to share with you that bids were open for the Green Tree Extension Project on January 21st. We had 8 bids that were received, and Skanska USA is the parent low bidder at $33.81 million. The engineer's estimate was 36.3. So slightly under is where those bids came in. We're still evaluating the bid proposals, and staff will recommend an award of construction at a future council meeting. And then on the fire side, I'd like to share with you that our Victorville Fire Department recently received a new brush engine from California Office of Emergency Services. Through a cooperative agreement with Cal OES, Victorville Fire will use this engine as a part of a larger 5-engine strike team to respond to large wildland fires when needed. This Type 3 engine carries 500 gallons of water and has 2 pumps, allowing it to operate when parked or to pump and roll at the same time. Our fire personnel will begin training on the unit so they're ready to respond when brush season begins. We are honored and pleased to assist Cal OES with wildland fire response efforts throughout California. Those are all the comments I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. All right, going on to item 12, requests for future agenda items, discussion, possible action. Member Becerra, do you have any requests for future agenda items?
No future requests. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Gomez.
Yes, I'd like to set a motion to create a proclamation for the month of February to acknowledge this month as Black History Month.
Is there a second to have an agenda item to consider a proclamation? Being no second, the motion dies.
Thank you. The second one is planning. It's called a planning and preparedness for 2021. We have responsibilities as Victorville City Council to protect us and ourselves and others. But I see a lot of agencies doing preparation to bring everything back to order. And I wanted to see if the council merited a preparedness from the city of Victorville to start moving forward and have the initiation plans when we do open up to have them in place. And that's my motion.
Okay, is there a second? Being no second, the motion dies.
And the next one is a motion in relation to the acceptance of the Homeland Security Grant for the acquisition of automatic license plate readers for the mobile trailer retrofit to agendize reports once reviews with FEMA or its relevant agencies take place for informational purposes to the City Council to keep the council informed of any inefficiencies found by FEMA and solutions discussed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Hearing no second, motion dies.
The next one is a motion to consider pay-as-you-go rather than taking the long-term debt to include fiscal controls such as establishing a separate enterprise fund and annual audits, a citizens oversight board, a property owner's right to appeal the fee and the process to do so. That would include procedures for setting annual rates, including the inflation factors, to be agendized for the first week of April 2021 with reporting and research to council for possible action and discussion.
Is there a second? No second?
I don't have any other motions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem Irving?
I don't have any at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And the chair does. So I'm interested in An agenda item in which we direct the city attorney in coordination with the city manager to review and make recommendations for revisions to our current policy manual as might be necessary. We have 2 council members with us that are new, and anytime there are new members to the team, it's a good time to make a global review of our policies and procedures so that they may contribute should they choose. Additionally, there are a few topics, among others, that the council may wish to consider, including making explicit the voting process to be used for all council appointments, not just the mayor and mayor pro tem, but the ones to the outside agencies. Also incorporating the norms and protocols that we may agree to in our February 23rd governance relations workshop, and correcting minor clerical errors. So with that said, I move that the council place on the next agenda an item in which we take action to direct the city attorney in coordination with the city manager to review and make recommendations for revisions to our current policy manual. Is there a second? Thank you. So we have a first and a second by member.
I have a point of privilege.
Becerra, your point of privilege?
Yeah.
State your point.
Yeah. So we have a policy manual, I think, that says we can only do it twice a year.
Okay, so that's not a point of privilege. Councilmember Gomez, are you thinking of a point of order?
Well, I'm thinking, can we do that if the policy says we only do it every 2 years or something like?
Thank you, Member Gomez, but your point of order is, in which is what it is not well taken, as that's not what the policy states. That's the minimum amount of time that it can be taken up. So the point's not well taken. Moving on, Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote on that?
Sorry. Councilmember Becerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez?
As long as it's not friction with the policy, it's an aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. So we've just taken action to have that action item placed on the next council agenda. All right, and we're going to move on to the final item, which is number 13, reports from council members. And I have a question that I need some clarification on from our city attorney, Mr. Bortnowski. Since Member Gomez took 3 minutes to speak as a private citizen, and largely the kind of comments that were made are the kind of comments that she would typically make in this particular area, does the council member get a second bite at the apple, or how does that work here?
Well, typically, these reports from council members are supposed to pertain to activities undertaken by the council members, basically benefiting the city, i.e. reporting their attendance at outside committees, outside meetings, to the extent they're taking trips or attended conferences. It's to report on those types of activities. Okay. The comments previously made by Councilmember Gomez as part of the public comment didn't really address those issues. I do think it'd be appropriate to allow some additional time for her to report on those types of items to the extent they are applicable, i.e. things she has done that are of benefit to the city or have, enhanced her role as a council member on behalf of the city.
Okay, and then one follow-on question, because a lot of times, and me included, council members, want to recognize certain things, like, if I wanted to recognize this being Black History Month, that's something that I might typically say, but it's not a report as to activities over the course of the last few weeks. Would that still be within the scope of that, or are we just at this point, we should really just keep it very confined to actual reports on activities?
It's really a call of the council members, and maybe that's something we can take up when we discuss the revisions to the policy manual, if you want to expand what that 3-minute time frame is for. But like I said, typically it is required that, for example, you report on activities that you have attended on behalf of the city. That's the real purpose of these reports to the council. If the council is so inclined, it certainly could expand that a little bit to do such things as you mentioned, i.e. the recognition of Black History Month, things like that. I would think that's appropriate, but again, that should be council direction given to me in connection with revising the policy manual.
Okay, so all understood, and that's always been my understanding, but most boards and councils really go beyond that. So I don't think that it's, given that there's been a tradition of doing things a certain way, I don't feel comfortable in just making such a restriction at this point without hearing from the full council. So with that said, we're going to take up reports from council members in I guess, the tradition that we've held, at least in the last few years that I've been on the council. So with that said, we're going to begin with Member Gomez.
Yes, so I did attend 2 weekends, the League of California Cities. They have a lot of information that's very important for council members if you didn't have the opportunity to attend. If they were open to the public, I also recommend that they do it. But those 2 days that I attended, there was one of the funniest things is where they try to replicate what we're doing here, but it was so scripted that that's what made it very interesting. They had a lot of workshops that I think each of us would have loved to attend, even though I don't drink coffee. I think it was viable for individuals to do the networking portion. And then there's other California League of Cities meetings that I would encourage each of you to attend if you have not attended, since everything is being done through presentation through Zoom. And that's all I have to say about the meetings that I attended that are pertinent to this city.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Becerra.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Actually, it was a 4-day conference. Friday, it was a Thursday and Friday conference. I attended all 4 days. And as a new sitting council member, there was a lot of good information. Again, like Councilmember Gomez said, it seemed like they got some of the script from our city. So it's a good training. If the city can show some of the department heads, since we paid for the training, it'd be good for them to look at it. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Member Becerra. Mayor Pro Tem.
Good evening. I too had the opportunity to attend the League of California Cities workshops as well. I also wanted to say that I've been a part of a couple of meet and greets, which I want to acknowledge. I met with the High Desert Community Coalition, where we talked about some public safety concerns. I also had an opportunity to meet with the Victor Valley Community Services Council and the Intersections Housing Committee. And they've offered me an opportunity to read a particular study put out by Zillow. So I want to acknowledge that I've received it. I've perused it once, and I will be engaging in a closer examination of the study's findings. As a Black woman, I do want to say yesterday was the beginning of Black History Month, and I want to acknowledge that I have been invited to come and speak at a church, at Emmanuel Temple Church. So I hope that my schedule is going to permit me to do so. I'm doing everything I can. I'm excited to participate. And lastly, today is Groundhog Day, and I understand that our little friend saw his shadow. So I hear that rumor has it that that means we have 6 additional weeks of wintry weather. So don't put your coats away. That's all good news coming from the state of Pennsylvania. And with that, I have nothing else to say. This is Healthy Heart Month. So I encourage everyone to eat well and exercise to maintain your physical heart, but also spiritually, engage in forgiveness. Forgiveness is about the forgiver rather than the forgivee. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Well, so all of it so on point, except the extra 6 weeks of winter. I don't know about that. So, and I'm so glad to hear that our council members have been so engaged in the League of California Cities training. Much of the schedule conflicted with events and meetings that I was in, so I've been catching them after the fact on the recordings. It's been very, very helpful. Today was a good day because I was able to meet some of the Rotary Club members at Midway Solutions, and the Rotary Club donated a washer and dryer to the Victor Valley Community Warming Shelter. So that donation is going to be such a tremendous source of help for not only the shelter, but the occupants. I mean, we can all understand that. So I'm so thankful that our Rotary Club is, really stepped up to the plate for some community members in great need. And I just, gosh, I just have to tell you, yes, it's Black History Month. And I have to tell you, one of the biggest loves in our family is Harriet Tubman. And we all know Harriet Tubman. I mean, how can you not? And what an incredible woman. I mean, such an example of strength and perseverance and courage and all of those things. And then what makes her such a love in our family is she had epilepsy, right? And it's largely held that was developed as a result of brutality thrust upon her by someone who dared to think he could own her. And my daughter has epilepsy. So it's always been a testament in my family that even if you have something that's perceived as a disability, guess what? With God's help and perseverance and courage and character, you can really step up. And that woman saved the lives of untold, my goodness, I don't even know how many people. So just wanted to hats off once again, as we always do, to Harriet Tubman and all of the great figures in history and contemporaries, actually, that are doing great things. So with that said, we have no further business before this council, and everyone have a good evening. This meeting is adjourned.